even though the Chicago Bulls traded both their second-round picks that they came into the second round with, we still have another move to break down. The Chicago Bulls are adding Providence guard Jaylin Sellers to a two-way contract as an undrafted free agent. And this is the exact type of post-draft signing that deserves a real conversation because there's really upside here. Now, we'll talk about what the reality is, what his pathway is to the Bulls roster, if one at all. But this is a high upside swing that makes a lot of sense for the Chicago Bulls. We'll talk about it all, plus more, right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host here, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And Bryson Graham continues to work, man. And while I know that rightfully so, there's going to be a lot of people that talk about the Bulls and the trading their 2 second-round picks. They made a deal right after the draft as they signed guard Jaylin Sellers. This is a two-way deal that gives the Chicago Bulls a lot of flexibility without taking a major roster risk. He's going to bring size, scoring, and shooting upside to the Chicago Bulls. This is the kind of move that when you talk about a team retooling, that you take risk on players like this. What Seller brings to this team is a legit scoring production that he brought all throughout college and especially his last 2 years at Providence. This is a strong three-point shooting profile that he's bringing to this. He can create offense, he can attack closeouts, and he plays with extreme confidence. When you look at Jaylin Sellers, this is a guy that is a fifth-year senior. With that said, he played 1 year at Providence. He played 2 years at Ball State and 2 years at UCF. His second year at UCF, he only played 3 games, so you take that out of consideration. But out of the years that he was healthy, he scored in double figures in 3 out of those 4 years. And last season was one of the best seasons that he had, averaging 18 points per game. In 29 minutes, he shot 47% from the field and 42% from 3. As a matter of fact, every single year of his career, but his first year at UCF, which would have been his junior year, he shot above 40% from 3. So with 6'5", 205 pounds, he brings some legit size on that wing position as well. And I like the swing here. Again, I'm not going to gas it and say that it's some amazing signing that he can turn into some great player, but we'll see. That last year at Providence as well, to go along with those 18 points, he averaged 4 rebounds, 1.6 assists, right under his steals, 0.1 steals per game, and didn't turn the ball over a lot either. This is a kid that's active, that deserves a look at having some upside. And the only reason that he probably was not drafted higher in this draft is just because of his age, and he had an injury history when it came down to it. But he's a couple of years removed from that, so it may not be a big deal. The scoring production that he brought at Providence was great, right? This guy fits a need that the Chicago Bulls have, and that's developing some shooting on the perimeter and bringing that juice to the team. So that brings a natural question here. Will he actually play? As it stands right now, with free agency still coming up for the Chicago Bulls, the path to getting minutes for the Bulls is going to be dependent on a couple things. A, the roster moves that the Bulls make in free agency, and do they do anything with Trey Jones or Isaac Okoro? Do those guys stay on the roster, right? But really, right now, when you look at the Chicago Bulls roster, while we've always been a very guard-heavy team and deep team, our guard rotation is basically all point guards. When you look at it, Josh Giddey, point guard. Trey Jones, point guard. Rob Dillingham, point guard. That's it. And you have Isaac Okoro, who may be the only natural 2, him and Dailyn Swain. So, with that, especially if the Bulls do trade a player like Isaac Okoro, which, there's been some rumor on, I thought it would materialize at the draft, is going to happen, is going to determine that. I think he's going to have a very strong summer league, and either way, he's going to start off his season and career with the Bulls in the G League. But for a player that has, is on a 2-way contract, those players have to dominate in their development reps. So that means when he comes into training camp, he's going to have to turn some heads. When he through preseason and whatever else, he's going to have to turn some heads. And then if he doesn't make the official roster and he goes down to the G League, he's going to have to prove like, hey, I'm a legit shooter at this level. I'm above this level of competition. So that's what it comes down to. That's what you're going to have to do if he wants that. So the question becomes about, not only does he bring depth, but can he become a rotational level, at least shooter and scorer? And that's going to be a long road ahead of him, admittedly, for him to get there. I do think that this says a couple of things about the Bulls' direction as well. We're going to continue to add young players to take shots on. And that's what you want to be when you're a rebuilding team, is you want to be that team that gives young players opportunities to show that they can do something, that there's a real developmental system and path here for those players. And that this is the type of swing that you want to make. It may not turn into something, and if it doesn't, it's a two-way contract. No harm, no foul if it doesn't turn into something. But if it does, you could have found somebody that has been overlooked around, in this draft and by NBA teams, mainly because of his age, because of a prior injury that he had earlier on as well, and just the fact that this is a guy that the defense doesn't really project to be great, right? I want to be clear there, but he does have some legit size, and so again, like with Bryson Graham, we can talk about what he did in the second round. I have my own problems with what happened in the second round, so I'm not going to act like I don't have issues with that either. But at 23 years old, this guy is younger than some of the players that went above him. So he's not like at the point where he's 25 or anything like that. He's 23. And, he just turned 23 a couple of weeks ago. So, this is a guy that's worth investing in. Now, he can end up just turning into the next Bulls G League scorer that people ask, why isn't this guy getting more minutes? But I think it says a clear thing in regards to the direction of the Bulls of betting on youth and seeing where things are going to go. This is a low risk, smart upside swing. And I don't think we should overhype it, but it is something to look at and monitor and say, hey, if this guy, comes in and does something, just pay attention to the story that happens with it. And we'll see where it all is going to shake out at that point in time. It's nothing worth gassing or anything like that. It's just worth seeing, where does this go? What does he turn into? What does this guy look like later down the road while we continue to develop those things? What does it end up turning into? So, that's where the Bulls are with it. And I think this is a really smart move by the Bulls. Again, this is the spot where you want to take it. And for a long time, we've talked about how the Bulls can turn their G League team into a legit developmental system. Me and Pat have talked about that over on Locked On. I've talked about it here. And that's what really good teams do. Teams that are focused on development and build really good developmental programs, that usually goes down to the G League. That usually goes down to their G League team. And even if he ends up just turning into a player that can come in and hit some shots for you once in a while, that's more than most undrafted free agents end up turning into. So, this could be Bryson Graham taking a shot on a young player with some upside, and we get to see if that upside actually turns into something meaningful for the Chicago Bulls. But again, I like the player. I like the potential here, and we'll see what that ends up bringing long-term for the Chicago Bulls. He is a scorer with legit size that can get that shot off. He has a burner on that shot. The release is quick. The release is fast, and he's been doing that basically since he came into the NCAA, has only had one season shooting below 40%. That's somebody I'm going to want to bet on, especially with legit size that we need on that wing. Could he end up turning into that, especially with the Bulls not expected to get a lot of wins, even though they're going to compete next season? Let's see. I want to hear from you guys on this, though. Hearing that Jaylin Sellers and what he could possibly be for this Chicago Bulls team as an undrafted free agent, how excited are you about this? Do you think he has a chance to become a real piece for this team? Well, as I was gearing up to finish this episode, the Chicago Bulls just signed another undrafted free agent, this time in Tobe Awaka, the forward that came out of Arizona, 6'8", 255 pounds. This guy's measurements are crazy. He's measured at a legit 6'8", in the draft combine, 261 pounds, and almost 7'3" wingspan and a standing reach of 8 feet 9 inches. That's ridiculous. He also has 9-inch hands, and his hand width is 10 inches. That's crazy. Now, he didn't measure crazy stats as far as the vertical. His max vertical leap was 37.5, which actually is pretty damn good. He ran the 3/4 court sprint at 3.19 seconds, and the lane agility at 10 seconds as well. When you look at the shooting drills, he shot that at a 52% and 63% as an off dribble. This guy is another guy, much like Jaylin Sellers, that's worth investing in when you're the Chicago Bulls. He played 2 seasons at Tennessee, 2 seasons at Arizona. He didn't really start. He only started 39 games out of the 145 he played, most of that coming his first year at Arizona, where he started 36 out of 37 games. Never really scored in double figures, right? A guy that kind of knows what he is, more defensive-minded as a forward that's going to bring that defensive identity, but he's a smart player, averaging 60% from the field over the course of his collegiate career and 41% from three, even though he took less than 1 3 per game over the course of his college career. 9.1 rebounds his last year in Arizona, which is solid, right under a block, right under a steal per game. This is a developmental piece that could make some sense long-term for the Chicago Bulls. Not one that I'm going to gas and say is going to be great or amazing or anything like that, but it is a player that, again, much like we talked about with Jaylin Sellers, You bring somebody in that's worth investing in and to see what he can bring. He's going to be a rebounder. He's going to be a defender. He could potentially fit with Caleb Wilson and Dailyn Swain and just play that kind of enforcer off the bench that the Bulls have not had. It brings some front court depth, but this is going to be a G League signing and maybe make the G League a little bit more exciting when it comes down to that as well. You know, I think he brings physical tools that really make sense. Really good as an interior finisher. He's just smart in that. And I think that this signing matters because it's going to be somebody that could be dependent on the point guards, and it just adds more youth, size, and effort-based players. That's really what this is. This is a player that plays with a lot of heart and brings a lot of that to the basketball court, and we know how much that both Tiago Splitter and Bryson Graham definitely value that. So, you know, it's something that, again, add some upside, take a swing on a player, and see what they can turn into. And this is where we're at as Chicago Bulls right now. This is where you want to do. You want to take those shots on these type of players. And I am happy for once that the Bulls are doing that. So we'll see. I think Jaylin Sellers has a more natural path to actually be an NBA player if he's going to turn into one because of the elite shooting. A guy like Tobe Awaka is how you pronounce it. Tobe Awaka, a guy like him really is just going to be an energy and effort player. But hey, we've seen players like this actually turn into like I said, tough players off the bench that you may overlook or undervalue some, but maybe can turn into some toughness off the bench for you, which the Bulls have lacked guys in toughness for a long time. But let me know what you guys think on each of these signings down below. Which one do you think actually has the cleanest path to make it to the NBA for the Chicago Bulls? I think Jaylin Sellers personally, but let me know what you guys think on that down below. But stay in tune with this. You guys know we're going to be bringing the heat for the Chicago Bulls like nobody else can. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel as well, hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode or an upload. You can follow us at Bull Central Pod on every social media platform. You send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of Breaks.